The Team Never Quit podcast is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. Partner up with Navy Federal so you can earn more and save more. You can learn all about this at NavyFederal.org. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Team Never Quit podcast. As always, thank you everyone for listening, watching, viewing, and subscribing. If you enjoy the show, please give it a thumbs up or rating wherever you get your podcast. So before we dive into today's special guest, let's kick it off with our Patreon question of the day, which is, what is your most memorable moment from your days in Buds?
You first?
Yeah, so for our listeners, we're interviewing one of Marcus's Buds instructors.
I know, perfect question for today.
Well, yeah, we'll get into that. I get into that memorable moment, Buds. Graduating. All the rest of them are misery. Come on, man. All right. This is a long one. My most memorable moment is with you. It's long.
Can you say it?
I don't know. The first time I was standing quarterdeck watch, and you were in your office. Just me and you. You were the OOD or the officer of the day.
Nice.
Right? And then when the Phantom called, the Phantom called the quarterdeck, and I didn't know who she was. I was brand new. And I sent her over to you. And then you came over screaming at me saying, don't ever send that freaking crazy somebody this over here over again. And I was like, roger that. Well, I hung up, and she kept calling back. Well, remember, I was on the balls to 4 that night, right? You were there all night. Well, then in the middle of that, your wife calls, and I didn't know that you were married. So I go, listen here, you crazy bitch. This is on a secure line. I'm on a secure Navy SEAL quarterdeck line. It's me and him, and he tells me to say this. He's like, don't ever send that. And I was like, yes, I was scared to death. I had no idea who he was, but I was brand freaking new, right? I mean, I didn't even have stripes on my arm. And I hung up the phone. Well, then I'm kind of just sitting there. About 10 minutes later, he has this huge door to his office, and that sumbitch kicks open, man. He screams my last name only. Luttrell, you motherfucker, get your ass out here. And I come out, I'm in my dress uniform. I come running out of there, and it's just me and him on the huge seal grinder. And he's sitting there looking at me. He's like, he goes, drop down, which means get in the leaning rest and push-up position. So I'm kind of sitting there, and he goes, you know what? Just go get wet and sandy. So I'm in my dress uniform. I go out, I get wet and sandy, I come back. He's like, go back again. So I go back again, I come back, and he has this roller desk chair. He rolls out there. He goes, you asshole, that was my wife. You cussed and hung up on it. And I was like, no, sir, it was a Phantom. He's like, no. And he goes, now you're going to pay. And I mean, because she bypassed me and went straight to him. You remember that? Oh my God. That was our first real introduction. Because then every day after that, when I was loafing around or he'd see me, he'd be like.
So for our listeners, there is someone that they call the Phantom. That is a woman, or at least has a woman's voice, and calls the SEAL team to just like.
She doesn't just call the SEAL team, man. She calls every command in Naval's.
She was everywhere, man.
So this was probably 5 years ago.
This recently happened to me.
Yeah, and probably 5 years ago. We're in Coronado for an event that was publicized that Marcus was going to be there. It was on doors in Coronado that Marcus was going to be there. We're in bed at the Dell, and the phone rings to the hotel room at like 2 in the morning.
3 in the morning, probably?
3 in the morning.
How you doing?
And I answer.
What are you wearing? And
this woman says, hi, is Marcus there? And I'm like, who the fuck is this? And Marcus says, I hand the phone, because I'm like, who the fuck is this?
Bro,
it was the Phantom.
I heard her voice, and I knew immediately who she was. I'm not saying I didn't listen to ever talk to her for hours on end when I was on quarterdeck watch, but I'm not saying that I did, okay? And for those who were wondering, she has the best phone sex. It doesn't matter. You never even heard anything like this woman before.
Well,
it's unbelievable. She found me at the Hotel Del Coronado, and I was underneath my alias. I was in my room asleep, and she called, and got passed through to me.
Well, and I had never heard
And
of
her
the
voice
Phantom
never
before.
changed. It sounded exactly the same.
I've never heard of the Phantom before. So
Because no, we don't talk about her.
We didn't call her that back then, and it was only at Bud's back then.
That was right.
That's the only. I mean, I don't remember ever anybody saying anything about like at Team 3 getting phone calls. I know it never happened on the East Coast, but it was always
no,
Bud.
she called. Yeah, was
And the
saying
Bud students would always spend hours on the phone with her.
some of them did, maybe. I don't know.
Oh no,
But-
almost everyone did.
yeah, it's at the compound, which was amazing how she got to the Dell.
Well, so here's the thing. An hour later, after he hangs up, I had immediately called down to the front desk and I said, do not allow any phone calls to come through. Our kids were sleeping in the room with us. And I said, do not allow any phone calls to come into the room at all. None. Called again. Kept calling throughout the night. And so I know that it had to be someone at the Dell, or someone at the Dell gave her access.
That's not right, man.
So
I couldn't believe she's still around.
yeah.
That's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe she passed it down.
No. Any team guy knows what I'm talking about. And I don't know anybody who's went through there who hadn't come across there, but
Well, the next morning, because I mean, I had never heard of this person before, so the next morning we see some other team guys, and I said, "Hey, do y'all know who the Phantom is?" And they all were like, "Yeah, we do."
it's almost like they know you're going to fall asleep on watch, and she calls because you don't go to sleep when she calls. Like, hey, I can't talk. I mean, dude, I can't even do it justice.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
So what was?
I'll just shake my head at him.
Yeah.
I don't know how I get the blame for that. She called me.
You don't get the blame for it.
Okay,
I was
cool.
just saying, I as your wife, I was very shocked to have some like.
There's all kinds of little weird
Whispering.
stuff that goes on in our community like that. We don't ever talk about. Like no one ever hears about that kind of thing. But everyone just.
Well, thanks for bringing that back up because I had forgotten all about that. That was awesome.
Well, the part about the Phantom or the part about me hanging up on your wife?
No, that part I remember.
Oh, okay, check.
And then punishing you relentlessly, I remember that as well.
It was.
But that continued, so
It did.
that wasn't just the first time. So
I guess it's
What was
the
your
only
favorite?
team guys that they came.
mine was Hilo Cast and Recovery. So I kind of knew that I really like flying. Obviously, I live in an airport. So for me, when we did Hilo Cast and Recovery in third phase.
When did you go through?
in
What was your class?
84, 85, so class 131.
Check.
Like a lot of classes before yours.
The hardest class.
That's how it starts right there. Did you hear that?
No, my class wasn't the hardest class.
You admitted
It was the
that?
second hardest class.
Oh, check. Why? Who were you around?
What do you mean?
Well, if you
Who do you think's the first hardest class?
Who had the first? 78?
The first class.
70. Oh, that's good.
Class 1.
That's pretty good.
Hardest class.
That's true.
Nice.
That's logical.
But I don't know. I really liked it, man. Jumping out of Hilo, all that stuff. I'm kind of like, okay, this is kind of it, right? Up to that point, we've been in IBSs, but that was kind of it. You're jumping out of helicopters, so that was cool.
That was cool. Actually, and it took. I stopped. You start forgetting about how cold the water is after Hell Week kind of deal. I mean, it still gets to you, but when you're jumping out of a Hilo, I never focused on that. There's some things that we do that even though the other stuff is terrible and sucks, it doesn't matter because whatever tops that pulls our attention from it.
Yeah.
That's a great place about that program. You're right. It stresses out everything we got. Every virtue, every vanity, every value. That's what SEAL stands for. Some kind of stress, right? It has to. I mean, it's the biggest stress club I've ever been through.
It's all right, though, man. That's the way it should be.
Where were you born?
Phoenix. Phoenix, Arizona.
Do you come from a military family?
My dad was in World War II, actually, in the Army.
Nice.
Still alive?
No, he passed 15 years ago or so.
You got any of his stuff?
Yeah, some of it.
What do you think about you becoming a frogman? I'm sorry, did you say it was Army?
Yeah.
He was Army.
Yeah, what do you think about you being a frogman?
So I was a nuke before I was a SEAL. Yeah, don't be sitting up like that. So I was in a nuclear power program.
That's the hardest job in the Navy.
Found a way to get out of the nuclear power program, and we're just going to leave that at that. And got to Buds. I took the screening test.
I didn't know you
got
were a
to
nerd.
Buds.
You have like highly intelligent. I mean, you kind of. That's all
Yes.
right. I get that.
I was
That makes sense
I was an
now.
ET, and then I was a nuke on top of that. However,
That completely changes everything for me. It makes complete sense of your humor. You're a tough nerd. You're a badass nerd. That's what that is. That's why you can. That's why you get to me the way you do.
It's funny the way you put that.
Isn't that good? I never thought about it. I didn't know that part. You don't wear your
Don't wear my what?
you didn't wear your bubble. Your dolphins, I never saw those.
I don't have a bubble. I never went on a submarine. I never even got to the submarine.
Oh, thank God.
I went from nuclear power school to Buds.
Oh, check.
Okay.
So
Give them props to the nuclear
Where
power,
was I
the
born?
undersea guys.
Phoenix?
They're the hardest
Yeah,
job
we're
in the
just
Navy.
going with your background.
Yeah.
What made you want to go into the military?
so I was a really good swimmer in high school, and I had a assistant swimming coach who said he was a SEAL. I still have not been able to confirm or deny that, but he talked to me about SEAL team. So when I came in the Navy and I was a nuke, you can't go from the nuke program to SEAL because the nuke program's a 6-year program and all that good stuff. So my way out of that was one of those extra, normally people go in for 4 years. But the 6-year programs, you're locked in. One of those years is for the automatic advancement to E4 upon graduating A school, and the other one is for the nuclear power part. Well, my A school was so long, and my time and rate back then from going to E3 to E4 and E4 to E5 was so short that I took the exam and made it for
Bless you.
bless you, which actually negated that 1 year. So that was really my way out of that 6-year program, that technicality, and that's how I got to Buds. So
It's pretty square away, man.
I just really, back then there was no, I think the only book that was out there was Men with Green Faces, probably.
Oh yeah, great book. What was
And-
going on? What was the vibe of the teams back? What was happening? What was it like?
Nothing. It was really, I mean, post-Vietnam, 10 years, you know, so Grenada, had just happened.
So it was all
but-
Vietnam guys running around, were
Oh,
instructors?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
God, what was that like?
That was awesome.
They hate everybody?
No, it was awesome, man. They were. I tell people that Buds was the most adult experience of my life because you're in a fleet and you're doing all the fleet stuff and everybody hates everybody else, and you know it's just a miserable program. I think being in the fleet, but that's just me. All you Navy dudes, you can hammer the comments, whatever you want to do, that kind of thing. But I hated it. I hated every second of the fleet part of the Navy, and but I got to Buds, and here I am thinking, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Buds is gonna be that way, and I showed up on a Friday afternoon, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I checked in, and they were like, "Hey, see you Monday."
So is that all you'd seen was
Like
the
what?
Men with Green Faces? Just read that book? Was it?
I hadn't even read the book. I think.
How'd you
when I
find
was-
out about the teams?
from my instructor in high
Oh
school?
yeah.
All right, check.
Instructors.
And then I can tell you right now what made me want to go to Buds more than anything. When I was in ET school, I really didn't. I was going to be a nuke. That's just the way I was going to go. But I'm walking down the hallway. The back hallway of ETA school is a really dark hallway because it's all the night labs. So the hallway is it's all painted black. Everything. Floor's black. Walls are black. And I'm walking down this sea of kids, kind of middle of winter. Everybody's in their black uniforms, with the tie. And I'm just looking down the classes are out, and I see all the kids walking, and I see them doing this number. They go to the sides, and then they came back in. Just like, what's coming? Somebody with a cart, whatever. It was some young E4 team guy, blonde hair, trident was like the only thing on his uniform. And he was just walking through the crowd, and everybody was it was like parting the Red Sea, man.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, I want to be that guy. That's just, after being around all the normal fleet guys, I saw that and I go, I want to be that guy. And from that second, everything I did was to get me to Buds.
That freaking trident will catch your attention quick.
It was just, it fit for me. It was just the right place for me to be. So
How hard was that transition over? This is before all the pipelines, right?
there were no pipelines. There was
Yeah, it
nothing.
was none of that, right?
Passed the screening test. As long as you were in a source rating, passed the screening test, you could go to Buds if you didn't have something holding you back, like a 6-year program or
Yeah.
a CO that didn't want you to leave, blah, blah, blah.
That's the problem. I tell some of the kids now, it's like if you're real squared away, your leadership won't let you go. Especially if they put some time into you.
Well, that's not a reason to be a screw up.
Well, I know, but then if you're shitbag, then they definitely won't send you to Buzz. So you got to catch the medium. You got to, right? The ebb and flow of that.
It might be different now. For me, it was, I don't know, I was still in school pipelines, so nobody cared,
So what was your specialty in the teams? Did you go to what schools did you go to after?
Because I was an ET, as soon as I got to Team 2 was my first duty station, and as soon as I got there, I had like 5 months to wait. We did TT back then, SEAL Tactical Training, I called it. Each team did their own. And they just run a class. Yeah, you still had the 6 month, but you really didn't get your trident until you got in your first platoon.
Right? They gave it to you.
So I didn't get mine for like 9 months because I had to go through STT, and they had just finished one, and I had to wait like 5 months for the next one to start, and it was 4 months long. So, long story short, as I got there, so of course I was EDT. So
did you want to go to the East Coast?
Yeah, yeah. So I put 2, 1, and then SDB team was
2.
So they sent me to 2, which was nice. So long story short, though, they sent me to all these comm schools, which kind of sucked. And then while I was waiting for STT, Pierre Ponson, who just passed away, was out in the parachute loft, and he's like, I was always out there anyway because I like airplanes and stuff. So he actually, we did static line, of course, at Fort Benning, but he put me through free fall class because at that point we didn't even have ram airs. We had 9 at the team, and you couldn't jump ram air chutes unless you had a bunch of jumps. So,
and not a lot of guys, not everyone had free fall school.
No, very few people.
Very few people did.
But
that was like the coolest school you could have.
They had the paracommanders, man. We had a whole wall full of the paracommanders, the round chutes with all the slits in them. They use them for, what do you call it now? Where people getting towed by a boat.
Parasailing.
Oh, okay.
And they had those and he's like, if you want to do free fall class, I'll put you through free fall class with this platoon that's going through. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that, but you have to jump PCs. They're going to be jumping ram airs. You're going to be jumping PCs. Man, I packed 10 of those things every day in the evening. Packed 10 of them. And the next day, I think my first day I got 5 jumps. Second day I got 9. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is you're brand new in the teams.
I hadn't even been to STT yet, and I already free fall qualified. By the time I got to STT, I had 105 jumps before I got.
So that almost happened to me. I almost got sent to free fall before I got to my team, but one of the chiefs said, "I'm not going to do that to you because all the old timers, there's a line for that."
Yeah, there probably still was back then.
Oh yeah,
I remember.
I was the last STT class. Now it's all condensed now though.
Yeah.
SQT, man. And then how long were you at 2? Is it like Bud's team 2, like everybody says?
No, man, I love Team 2. It was the best. I could not wait.
What year is this?
I got to Team 2 in February, April of '85.
Yeah, you look like you got trapped in the 80s.
Oh, come on, man.
That's so...
You know what I'm talking about?
That's hurtful to me.
That's not true.
All the team guys wear that same exact stash, that combat stash. Hell yeah.
Oh, the mustache. Yeah.
I don't look right without one, man.
I've never seen you without it.
I don't look right without it.
I'm agreeing with you. This is a compliment.
Just saying.
I think it's a very fitting.
He had this Toyota truck.
88
Toyota white pickup with a camper on the back of an extended cab. Awesome. I mean, like original hubcaps on that thing, and he would drive that. Everyone knew whose truck it was. And then Ensign Burns had this orange Jeep. And I mean, every now and again, some of the guys walk around, and we get anywhere near that thing, and he'd be on our ass. I mean, that was kind of like, I'll never forget that thing.
Yeah, I was hoping somebody would steal that. But anyway.
I remember we picked it up
to go back and forth to Arizona to visit my kids.
How many miles did that thing have on it? 500,000?
I sold it 512,000.
That's what I thought.
512,000 miles.
You guys wouldn't believe this thing.
Oh my god.
That freaking white is a Datsun, right? Or is it Toyota? Toyota. Check.
500.
He looked way too big to be in it too. That was the thing. It didn't look right.
But I needed a vehicle that I didn't have to. That I could A, maintain, and B, I could afford the gas.
That's like Gothro in that.
In his Prius.
Yeah. Do you know Gothro?
Chris Gothro, yeah, he knows him.
I know him, but I wouldn't drive a Prius.
He's in a Prius. Actually, I think now he has a truck. But the first time we were getting into his car, I was like, I would have never.
So this is the baddest dude I know. He drives a Prius, and he's a cat transporter. So he transfers rescue cats from the orphanages. Are they called orphanages? I think they are, because cat people love their cats, right? So it's from to their house. That's what he does.
I've never heard of a cat orphanage. Just saying.
I'm trying to watch my P's and Q's because people really love cats, man. You can offend them.
I'm a cat dude, but I
Yeah.
don't.
I
I've
get
never
it.
heard of a cat orphanage.
Cat
Well, what do you
rescue.
call them then? Wherever they're rescue shelter.
Rescue shelter, maybe.
Shelter. Yeah.
Cat.
I don't know. I don't have cats,
That's
man.
gonna
I'm
be
just
awesome.
trying
Now I'm
to
gonna
be
call all cats that I
Trying to be a
strays instead are
decent
now
human
orphans.
being. I was like, all right, I'm telling you, this dude I know is a badass and he transports cats. Funny to me.
It is very funny.
He sends me pictures.
He does.
I think it's great. I'm a cat.
I mean,
myself.
you could do a whole miniseries or write books on what team guys do after we get out.
I have a cat, and his name's Squatch because he had big feet when I.
Is that true?
Yeah.
What color is it?
Gray and white.
That's awesome.
You are a cat person? I knew it.
I'm a cat person because my dad, when I was a kid, hated cats, and we had a screen door, obviously, and every time the cat would get in my dad's way, he'd pick it up and he'd throw it right in that screen door. Give it the screening test, he called it.
No. I'm not even
Give
gonna
the
laugh.
cat the
Yeah.
screening test. Wham! So,
Aw. Then you had
Poor little cat.
sympathy for the cat.
so I've had sympathy for cats.
Yeah. Aw.
Cat people remember stuff like that.
Yeah.
They got them, you know what I'm talking about?
My mom's a cat person.
We have them in the family.
I have a cat, and I don't have like 50 of them. I'm just saying I
a
got
bunch
a
of
cat.
LSU Tigers in here too, so
Yeah.
But
Cats.
if you let your cat stray around, my wife would accuse me of stealing other people's cats.
Oh my gosh.
And dogs. So anyway.
That's funny.
did
Okay.
you stay at 2 for how long?
Man, I was East Coast 11 years, and then I went to 3.
All at 2 though?
Yeah. Except for I did a little stint at the center.
Was that back in the day? Because guys,
Set up.
people always ask me, they're like, guys, do you switch your SEAL teams? Do guys always jump from team to team? And I was
I
like,
love
"Man."
team team.
Yeah, most people when they get in there, that's their house, kind of like fraternities. You go in, there's stuff to do inside the house. There's platoons. Those switch all the time. But most of the guys, they stay where they're at unless the coast changes.
Yeah, I loved that place. So I didn't ever want to leave. So, but they made me.
So what year did Panama happen?
December '89.
Of 89. Can you tell us about that whole thing? Get into why we had a conflict in Panama?
Yeah. So Noriega obviously was the king of drugs and all the other things bad. Like if you can remove God from society, that he did everything that would happen once you do that. So not a good dude, not a good, it was just bad for the U.S. And President Bush Sr. obviously made him a target for, let's just call it extraction, right?
And where was Noriega based out of?
Panama.
Like Panama City, Panama? Or?
Yeah, ish. I mean, he had around like we actually boarded some of his yachts and that kind of thing. I mean, he had stuff everywhere, but the idea was that it would be the first time after Desert One, which was a miserable failure spec ops wise, only because none of the services really talked to each other.
Did you go over there for that?
No, that was before my
That was
time.
2?
That was 81. That was before.
That was
my
2's
time.
business though, right?
I don't think there were any team guys on that.
Okay, check. Go ahead.
Anyway, so this would be the first time that all spec ops would be under, SOCOM, if you will. General Lindsay, Rudy Bosch, our, our old Master Chief from
The guy who won Survivor, the match
Correct.
video.
He was the first Command Sergeant Major of SOCOM. So General Lindsay and Rudy Bosch. Anyway, long story short, this was a completely soft-oriented mission set, was to go down and get Noriega, right? Everybody went down there to get one guy. And that was to get him and get him out of the country and turn that country over to the next, let's call it democratic leader. So he was quite the dictator. And he was just pumping drugs into the U.S. So now we just let them flow across the border, but we'll stay away from that.
Yeah.
But the whole idea was to go get Noriega, get him out of there, and install somebody that wasn't as bad.
So
as
was he
Noriega.
actually running the country?
Oh, yeah. He was dictator, yeah.
Wow.
So Bush signed the op order to go get him, and we all went down there basically on the night of the 18th, morning of the 19th. So the dive op actually happened about, it started on the 19th, but it was the explosives we put on the boat went off at 1 in the morning on the 20th, basically. So, but we were just part of that. So it was us and 4 platoons from Team 4. There was a platoon down at Unit 8 already, but they put them in isolation. Didn't even tell them anybody was coming. Just put them in isolation. So here's the guys that are operating in Panama and working there at the unit
Oh, really?
And they put him in isolation.
And brought somebody else in?
Well, the rest of Team 4 came.
Yeah.
4 platoons from Team 4 and our platoon. Originally, we were supposed to augment the guys and go to Patia. And then...
Because there was 3 incursions, right? The airfield, the boat, the water.
Well, for the team guys, it was Patia Airfield and obviously the boats in Balboa.
How did we get that over the Rangers? Do we even know that story?
Yeah. Obviously, this...
The
only thing they were trying to do at the airfield in Patia was to stop him from using that as a way to get out. And there was only one plane there. It wasn't a military deal. It was just a Learjet. So the Rangers actually did the larger military airfield. So
roger that. That makes sense. Okay, because that's their primary.
Sending SEALs to go, get a Learjet makes sense, but to take over an airfield doesn't really make sense.
Right. Not at all. We're not designed for that.
It's not even we weren't even training towards anything like that. So, but we were training, obviously, Team 2 was the combat swimmer team. Everybody knew that. We trained with the Germans, the French, and everybody else. I spent a couple stints training with the French. So we did all the combat swimming. So cooler heads prevailed. So mid-summer of 89 is when they kind of said, hey, the platoon that had been ready to do that op had to deploy. So, and they were going to deploy in December, early December. So Carly was our CO, and he said, hey, your platoon is going to be the platoon that goes if this does happen. So we started training in July.
So tell us about the op itself. How big is the yacht? How far off the
So it was
coast
a 71-foot old Swift patrol boat is what it was. It was one of our old Vietnam boats. I've got a picture of it. I guess I could send it to you, but it was an old Swift boat, aluminum hull, 70-ish feet long, and he had 8 of them, and he would use them for all his military stuff. So originally there was 8 boats in the water, and the whole platoon was going to dive and sink all 8. So there was a plan out there to go on the surface and Zodiacs and attack the boats, and it's like, my CO actually brought us back from AP Hill and said, if you guys were going to destroy or stop Noriega from using all these 8 boats, these old aluminum hull Swift boats, twin diesels, he's like, what would you do? And I'm like, simple, combat swimmer, man. That's what we do, right? We'll dive over there and sink them for you. He's like, all right.
I'm somebody that likes to do my research before making a purchase. Whether it's reading reviews or scouting articles, I just want to make sure I'm choosing a product that best fits my needs, especially when it comes to products that can help me with my sleep and when I'm stressed, like CBD. And as the most clinically studied CBD brand on the market, NextEvo's fast-acting formula takes it to the next level. I've been taking the gummies every time I get on a plane now, and look, I've got to tell you, ever since I started, my rides have been as smooth as ever. I get the best sleep and I feel completely refreshed every time I land. It makes my trips 10 times better too, because I don't feel groggy and tired just at the start of the trip, and it does make a difference. NextEvo covers a variety of CBD needs, from stress relief to better sleep, or even to boost your daily wellness. They've got 100% vegan and gluten-free products that range from everyday capsules to topical creams, gummies, and more. Upgrade your CBD. Go to nextevo.com/TNQ to get 20% off your first order of $40 or more. That's 20% off $40 or more at nextevo.com/TNQ.
So start training. So we did our land warfare, and then we did all of our diving, and we did a lot of diving. So we did I could get into all the stuff that we did do, but we dove a lot, and we were good. And everybody in the platoon was supposed to dive. We got down to Panama. He had taken 7 of those boats up the canal, put them on the north side, and left 1 boat in the harbor in Cologne. All the other boats were pulled out of the water up north. So did he know we were coming? Possibly. But he left 1 boat in the water ready to go. The Learjet was over at Patia. So our job as SEALs and the vanilla SEALs that were there was to keep him from getting out via the airfield or getting out via one of his patrol boats. So we did the combat swimmer route, right? pretty
So
simple.
how did you know he was on the boat?
Well, we didn't know if he was on a boat.
Okay.
We were just, whether he was on it or not wasn't the goal, right?
was
The
just
goal
to
was
sink
to
it.
deny him
Got it.
use of that. So how do you do that, right? We originally had thought about, well, we could wrap chains around the screw, but anybody can get in the water, take the chains off, and then just keep going, right? So luckily, Commander Carley, was like, no, we are going to do what we do, and that's we are going to put explosives on a boat. Couldn't put a limpet mine, though, which I'm shocked that some SEALs nowadays don't even know what a limpet mine is, but we couldn't put one on an aluminum hull boat without using the stud drivers.
Yeah.
Because it won't, magnets won't stick to it.
What was the thing about strapping it? It would come off?
Yeah, there was no way to really strap it on there. And it was only, what, pound and a half of explosives, right? Which
Because you just wanted a hole through it,
which
right?
is probably enough, but the idea of a limpet mine is using the tamping of the water,
Right.
poke a hole, and it floods a compartment. And so limpet mines weren't good. A particular country
That's
had
where the word to limp it. You make it limp, right? You kind of team guys come up with all kinds of stuff like this, but that's basically what it is. It looks like a little bit smaller than a manhole cover, right?
Yeah.
We wear it on
That's
our
a big
backs.
foam
Thing and it.
cover you put over it to make it buoyant. So-
Yeah, and it muffles the sounds like the boat would be having a fart underwater, and it's the coolest stuff, man. I'm sorry, keep going.
But that's what the goal was to sink these things, not to disable them. It was,
Right.
hey, we're going to sink them. So thankfully, Carly had the right mind about it, and it was, hey, you're going to sink them. So all the platoon, every swim pair had 2 boats that they were going to attach their charge to. The problem was the only other country that had a limpet mine that we could have used had a suction cup, and they would not let us use it. So we had to come up with a way to make this work. And everybody, to this day, even team guys are like, why'd you use a haversack? Haversack's got 20 pounds of C4 in it. So, which is way overkill for a little boat like this. However, we needed to dive something. We didn't have anything set up.
Go big or go home, man.
Never done before. So each pair carried a haversack, and we just used the bladder on it, the little thing you'd blow up.
Yeah.
We just used
It looks
that
like a
for
hot water
buoyancy. Anyway, we had the MCS1 clock, which was experimental at the time. I think it's now the Mark 38 or something, or
30,
not the
whatever.
Mark 48.
Right.
Anyway, we used a regular Mark 39 safe and arm device, pulled out a sock, taped that all up, used the det that's on the Mark 39, put that in a can of C4, sunk that down into this thing, and we just strapped it onto the strut with the limpet backpack.
Yeah.
Cinched it to a limpet backpack, just strapped it on the shaft in front of the strut. So it was pretty simple, but the great thing about those
you set the
clocks-
clock. What's the water like? Could you see
No, you couldn't see.
underwater at all? Nothing. It's
It's
dark
like every
outside.
other harbor, man.
Our people have no idea that the darkest
it's
place
dark.
on the planet of Earth is underneath an aircraft carrier at night or underneath
Yeah.
the boat at night.
Yeah.
It's
Super dark.
super dark. So when you're
the-
programming with a freaking bomb in your hand, it's cold, wet, and miserable. You got gloves on.
So that was the problem with the Mark 48, right? Because you had to put that
that
dial,
damn-
right.
yeah.
This we set ahead of time. It was a digital.
Yeah, that's right.
So basically, what you do is at that point you kind
Wait,
of
did you already put the go button on that sucker?
yes, but it had an arming switch, which was awesome. But you had to arm it
Man, that's sketch,
at
bro.
least 30 minutes
In the
ahead
water?
of time, right? You had to arm it 30 minutes ahead of time.
Knowing team guys, that's sketch, man. That's awesome.
Well, this plays into the whole problem of diving in, right?
Right.
And they delayed us getting in the water because they weren't sure that the HR was going to be 1 o'clock in the morning anymore. But Commander Carley was, telling General Lindsay, he's like, look, you don't get them in the water now, they're not going to make
So
it.
what your radio have is we already started the
Right?
clock.
So we need to get going. Now, the clock started that morning.
That's what I'm saying. You can't
And the
delay
only-
it, man. We got to go.
It was, the only thing that would keep that thing from not blowing up was the fact that it wasn't armed. But you had to arm it 30 minutes ahead of time. So
How long did it take you to swim out to it?
Well, we got in the water probably an hour and a half ahead of time, and it took every bit of that just about. And we got maybe 200 yards away.
Was there a heavy rip? Did you deal with any of that? Or was it pretty
There's
flat?
7 knots of current.
Really?
It was in full. Long story short, you mentioned it was dark, but the water was also super bioluminescent, so we had to be deep.
Oh.
And I had to put my hand in front of my compass board just to be able to see because of bioluminescence.
What that means is every time something kicks or something floats underwater, it leaves this huge neon green or whatever color it was. It could have been
Yeah, it was green.
Green. So people know you're down there.
Oh my God.
So it was amazing. So we had to go deep. So I'm down at 25 feet, which we could do back then.
You have a dragger on?
Yeah.
Okay, so with that rig, when you start going deeper than 20 feet, it gets dangerous for us.
Well, 20 feet was what they set it at some years later. It was 25 at that point. So we could dive at 25 feet for
That's another
the
reason
full
you are the way you
240
are,
minutes,
right?
right?
Too deep.
Maybe.
Come on, man. I never get a chance to throw any at you.
So with
man.
that said, so we basically had to, at one point, because they were delaying us getting in the water, Chris and I are like, well, what do we do? And I'm like, well, we'll arm that thing on your back, and we won't arm the...
He was wearing it?
Yeah.
That was a great idea. Good job on you.
I know. I could cut him away.
You
right?
wear the bomb, I'll turn the dial.
So the Mark 39...
Am I the only one who caught that?
Yeah. The Mark 39, you didn't have, or you had to arm that at least 15 minutes ahead of time. So that's the safe and arming device. That's the piece between the clock and the charge to give you a 15-minute escape time.
Oh my God.
So we had to arm the clock. So I'm like, well, what we're going to do is we're going to dive, and if we're 31 minutes out and we still aren't there, we're going to arm that clock. If we think we can make it in the next 16 minutes, then we're going to go ahead and do it, and that way we can get the safe and arming device armed before we put it on the boat, or right after we put it on the boat. But we made it there with about 5 minutes to spare. So we got on the boat, and I had to, that's the story I tell people. I was IDing the number on the boat, make sure it was the right one. And there was a dude standing 1 foot on the...
Half and half, right? Yeah, that's right.
1 foot on the little stair, on the old Swift boats that had these stairs on the back, and one on the pier. And I'm looking up at his crotch.
That's probably the coolest example of frogman shit, is that this dude's standing over there on shore and on the boat loaded, and most people are scared of sharks and stuff underwater. And right below this dude is a dude who's about to freaking...
blow everything up.
How about that? How far upriver did you guys...
I'm sorry, it was docked.
Yes.
Yeah, the port...
It was butt up against, stern against the pier, tied
Okay.
up, facing out.
Facing out.
Okay.
And I'm just looking at him going, you're going to be dead in a minute.
Oh.
And went right underneath and put the bomb on there. And I mean, we were literally there for maybe 30 seconds and we were gone.
That's the coolest frogman story.
And done. And then we were like 200 yards. We didn't get very far.
I'm actually picturing you down there with fins, and you're just having to kick the shit out, go so fast away from this explosion.
And we were in the pier system, so we couldn't go very fast. You couldn't dive out.
Did you
straight.
get up out, or did you stay?
No. So we went a couple hundred yards down the way towards our extract. And we were coming up, 5 minutes before 1 o'clock, and the bomb was supposed to go. But the stuff had already started, right? They started at 12:45 a.m.
So what happens to the metal on the boat? I mean, obviously it explodes, but underwater, is that just shooting shrapnel through waves?
Everything's going up.
It's going up
because of the tamping of the water, right? The water's 900 times denser than air, so everything goes up.
Everything goes up. Okay.
We got about, I don't know, I'm going to say it's 300 yards away, and we went way back in the pier that all these other ships were parked on, and we got back actually probably 80 feet back, way in the dark, way up behind this thing where the cement kind of started going up under the pier. So the only way someone could have seen us was if they were in a boat right out at the edge of the pier looking in. But we actually got our torso out of the water because we got 40 pounds going off here in 5 minutes. And we were only 300 yards away, and none of us had ever been hanging out in the water when a water shot went off at 40 pounds. So we got our torso out of the water. So we went off bag and waited. But there was so much going on, we couldn't even hear. You were talking about how water shots are so muffled. They were pounding the commandancia, and everything was just only a couple hundred yards away from the pier system. And we didn't even know if the thing went off. And because it was an experimental clock, I'm like, did they work?
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, a couple minutes after that, went back on bag and made our way out. There's a whole bunch of stories in there. We got ran over by the freighter. You were talking about how dark it was. So back down at 25 feet, going around the dry dock system, 12-minute dive out, 12 over, 12 back, which should have kept us, 300 yards away from the canal. But we ended up, because of the tide, was full ebb. And then if the Miraflores locks were open, there's even more current coming down. I say 7 knots, but it was kicking.
Yeah.
And because it kind of came in and pushed us out farther than we wanted to because of the way the the dock was shaped. Like if you look at it Google Earth now, all that area is all full of concrete now where the boat was. It's not even the same. But we ended up out in the middle of the canal when we made our left turn to kind of head down towards our extract.
And it's just you and
it's me and Chris,
guy.
and then the other dive pair, but we weren't together.
Okay.
Dive buddies were together, but dive pairs weren't. And so we're down at 25 feet, and I can hear the rumble of a ship coming, not a boat, but a ship. You know, I could hear the engine.
Yeah.
You know, and so I start going down.
That's how you know
taking my excursion,
yeah.
right? Because you could do an excursion to 50 feet for 15 or for 5 minutes, I think, and then come back up. And you couldn't do another excursion after that. But so I started going back down, and Chris kept pulling me back up to 25 feet. I did that 3 times, and finally I tapped on his ear. I'm like, dude, something's coming. You know, you can't talk to each other. And he's like, oh. So we went down to 50 feet. We weren't there for more than 20, 30 seconds, and the nose of that boat came right over the top. So talking about, it was dark because we're out in the middle of the canal. There's no ambient light out there at all, but it got really dark when that boat went over. And on all those freighters.
Oh, it's a pucker factor. Like, you can't believe you're
getting
on
all those freighters, the main circ pumps, the engine, everything's in the last third of the boat. And so this thing's going over what seems like a century. And then you could hear the main circ pump and all that good stuff. And what was funny is that, remember the strap on the dragger you never used? The mouth strap, right? So you had this strap that was on your mouthpiece. Nobody ever uses it. And the problem is when you're under a boat and the vibration is so bad because you're near the engine and the pumps and all that stuff, that your teeth aren't strong enough to keep that mouthpiece in your mouth.
Oh my God.
You let in water in a dragger and you're done.
Okay, yeah.
So with that said, right at the exact same time, right as we got down, heard the boat coming, it passed over our heads, or started to pass over our head. I could hear Chris zipping his mouth.
Yeah, right.
So I'm like zipping mine and he's zipping his. Tighten that thing up as tight as it could go, and that thing, it took forever to go over the top.
Imagine being in a pitch black, and there's something so violent over it. Can you see it? There's something so violent, and it's shaking you so hard that your teeth are chattering. It's blowing your gear off.
Oh my gosh, I would be so scared.
And you're in the water. This is underwater at 50 feet. That's the most. I remember the first time I got ran over, because you can't train for that.
No,
there's no training for that.
At that,
There's no way to mimic how that feels.
My problem was I wasn't in the fleet. I have no idea how deep ships and freighters especially. I don't know if they go 50 feet, 60 feet, and I know that aircraft carriers are like right there at 45-ish, 50 feet, whatever. So I'm like,
they're loaded down. It's deeper than that.
But oxygen's really toxic at those depths. So I'm like, we're going to 50 feet, and if we get hit by the hull, then we know we got to go deeper. But we're going to 50 feet, and like I said, that thing went over. And I knew that it had passed completely for us so we could then figure out what we're doing next. When we both like sloshed back and forth in the water because the screw had gone over our heads.
Oh my God.
The damn propeller. So the running getting by the damn forecastle in the bow is scarier than anything. But then you got the damn propeller coming at you. Dude, it's terrible. I mean, it's so,
I think that would be my absolute worst nightmare.
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
That's what a nightmare is.
So
some of us have to.
I won't explain what we did to get where we were going to go to get out of there, but because it would take forever. But we ended up finding our extract point, linking up with the dudes, and getting out of there.
What was your extract? A helicopter? Or?
No, it was the 2 boats that put us in the water, the 2 Zodiacs. They basically went over and
how far
picked us up.
Upriver did you set in to hit that offset?
So it wasn't very far, man. It was like total dive from where we got in to where the boat was. It was like, I want to say 1,200 yards ish,
right? Which
doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot. When the original, basically the first shot was 500 yards to get to the pier.
Yeah,
and we had to go around the pier and then down the pier 700 yards to get to where the boats were.
Oh yeah.
So it takes longer because you're swimming near a pier.
Contouring always.
The other pair, they stayed on the outside of the pier and went down. Chris and I actually. There was a lot of room to dive underneath, and Chris and I actually went under all the pilings, kind of went over, under, and as soon as I saw some light over to my right, then I knew we were getting close, and then I just beelined over there. And
so when you got pulled up from the Zodiacs, is that when they told you that it was a success?
Yeah, so we weren't actually at our planned extract point. We were about 400 yards short at the end of a pier.
How'd they find you? Or did y'all have a protocol for that? Obviously you did, but...
We were diving, first time I dove with a radio was on that op, but the radios didn't work for some reason. Imagine that. But we ended up getting to the end of the pier. What I was going to do is get up, because we were really late at that point. I mean, we were hours past our extract time. Because it just took longer to get where we were going than we thought. But I was going to go up surface and get in one of the dolphins, you know, the piers the pilings that come together and you can get inside of them and get up. I was going to call from inside of there to keep me from getting seen because I didn't want to surface in open water. And as I was getting up to where I could get in the dolphin, I saw a shadow. I went up and it's a Zodiac. And I'm like, I go back down real quick and I'm like, what would the bad guys be doing here with the Zodiac? So I went up and hotel platoon, little H was on the down tube for the motor. And I surface and Mark Dodd, I don't know if you know big Mark Dodd, but the big Mark Dodd, not the smaller Mark Dodd.
Just two team guys named Mark Dodd.
Yeah, I mean, we got team guys same name every damn. Yeah. Wait till you meet our Smiths.
So Mark's a big dude, bigger than me, and anyway, Chris and I both surfaced, and he just literally reached over to the Sekimar waist strap and just yanked him in the boat. And the next thing I know, man, I'm getting yanked out of the water by Mark. I mean, I didn't have any effort to get out of the water. He just yanked me in. And we're both laying in there like two fish flopping, and man, we start taking off in the Zodiacs to get back to the good guy side, back on the unit side, and I'm just like, everybody's like, great job, man, great job. And I'm like, it actually went off? And they're like, yeah. And I go, man, we had no clue.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, we're playing it off.
Yeah, man.
What's up?
But we had no clue at that point that it had actually worked. So first time SEAL team had ever done a dive op that actually blew something up. And the last time they ever did it.
That's a great story, man.
Isn't it weird?
That is crazy. So where was the bad guy?
It was probably, I don't think he was caught until the day after Christmas, maybe. But he was just running around safe house. And the guys at Dev Group were chasing after him, keeping him on the run. And I think he got tired of running because obviously couldn't get out on the boat, couldn't get out on the Learjet. I think we actually did another op where we stopped a high-speed boat trying to get out to the freighters. I think that was him. Turned them around. They went back in. We didn't chase him. But soon thereafter, basically, he was at the monastery, or it was a church or something, and he kind of holed up in there, and then they did their psychological, warfare on him with all the loudspeakers and everything. He ended up giving himself up.
Oh my gosh.
So, but I think it was the day after Christmas, or maybe somewhere 26th or 27th.
That's insane.
But I didn't have anything to do with that, so I don't kind of remember those details.
But still, just being a part of the whole big picture and blowing up that
blowing up the boat was awesome.
When did they fly y'all home? Or were y'all
3 weeks. We were there for about 3 weeks.
So I'm picturing the freighter that went over you. The yacht had just blown up. They were probably like, I'm getting the F out of here.
That's exactly what was going on, as they were beelining trying to get out. But there were other freighters trying to get in because they were like, man, if we don't get in past the first lock, then we're never getting through. And we're going to have to go around, or we'll be sitting here for months. So, excuse me, they didn't make it.
So that was on the east side of Panama, or the...
So if you look at the way the canal runs, it's kind of north to south.
Okay.
And it's on the south side.
Okay.
That was the Balboa Harbor, and up north is the Cologne area. So we're on the south side.
Wow.
By the Bridge of America and all that stuff down there.
So crazy.
So, anyway.
Oh my gosh. What was that like coming home from that? Because there wasn't wartime or anything. Do you just go back into training, or at that point? Yeah,
basically we had to deploy soon thereafter, within 6 months. So we just went back into platoon workups. But we got back, and the cover story for us, so that the rest of the dudes at the team didn't know what we were doing, was that we had screwed up a exercise. And I guess Commander Carley played that off really well, because when we got back to the team, like we were down in Florida doing some Fulton recovery exercises with the dummies. They called us up, said, you need to get back here so you can get on a plane and head down. But we had a day or so to kind of get our stuff together. So I can't remember whether it was 17th or whatever. But they put us straight in isolation. And the rest of the team guys were like, ha, you guys suck. You screwed up. Now you're paying the man. And anyway, when we flew out and all that happened, then we got back. There was only 3 dudes at the team that said, good job.
Oh, my God.
Only 3. Because it had been the first time since Vietnam, or let's call it Grenada. But Grenada was but not at the vanilla teams. And then before that was Vietnam. So over 10 years, since 15 years since guys had done anything. So
it's a big deal.
It was a big deal.
However, it's still a big deal. But I mean, it's when we're not doing anything
with the shadow of Patia Airfield and there were 3 people. I still remember their names. I won't mention them here, but they were like, "Good job." Everybody else was like,
well, because
is
that because they didn't know, or
a lot of it was because we didn't tell them, and they didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
There was some jealousy there, I think, but it was undeserved because obviously you see all the stuff we've done since then, but.
Team guys bad about that.
They are.
Yeah.
And our platoon was not known for its, following the party line at the team. So everybody was like, how can that platoon of
They're the ones who usually get it. Yeah, exactly. That's what happened to me. I was in that too.
Do that up.
Yeah.
How
the hell did those guys get that hop?
Everybody at the team knew how much I hated combat swimming.
Oh,
I just hated it. And everybody knew it. They're like, how can that guy end up on the combat swimmer?
The air god got the water detail.
Exactly. So there was a lot of that. So
wow.
Anyway.
Yeah, we do have that for sure. Where'd you go after that? When did you cross over to
95, 6? I went to Team 3.
What were we doing then?
I was a chief, and the detailer at the time made most of the chiefs switch coasts.
Oh, check.
So I had to go from Team 2 to Team 3, and Harward was the CO of 3 at the time, and he threw me right in a platoon as chief. So,
and something else I want to skip to, because I know that you've got a million stories, and we could be here all day, but so come 99... Right? 99, early 2000. You were an instructor at that time.
Correct. I had just made warrant officer. So I put in for warrant. Yeah.
Man, I thought you'd been a warrant forever.
No, I was just old and salty, man.
That's right.
Just saying. So, I had put on, I was on a deployment, actually, at Team 3 in Bahrain, and I put in for warrant. Last minute deal. I still made it, but my prize for becoming a newly minted warrant officer was going to Buds as a phase officer. So
is that fun? I feel like all the guys have a lot of fun there.
At Buds?
Yeah.
Like I said, man, the first thing I did at Buds,
I never got a chance to go there.
What, as an instructor?
An instructor?
Yeah. The first thing I did, I literally turned over with the guy that had the PTR, that phase before me. His turnover was 45 minutes long. I was like, here's kind of all the stuff, but peace out. And he left, and I walked right across the grinder, went in student records, got my record. Because I wanted to see what people had said about me at
Bullshit.
Buds.
Did you really?
Pull your record?
Yeah, it's talking about the Hellwig journals and all that.
Yeah.
Oh.
We have manuals of that. You went and looked. You know what? Mine's gone. Someone stole it.
I went and got my record from Buds. And so, because I wanted I want to know exactly what instructors thought of me.
Yeah.
Because I was the worst runner in my Buds class, probably the worst runner ever to go through Buds.
No, I am. I own the Anchorman title at Pods.
Dude, I was in every goon squad.
Me too. Man. You know how I know that? You were there.
Well, Instructor Reno kept me posted, but maybe that's what I had some sympathy for.
I was just about to bring him up, dude. The only other person I was terrified of there was him. When he came out, he's like, "You're gonna need." He said this to Wiseman. Jed Wiseman, he's like, you're going to need a fucking rocket on your back to keep up with me. I mean, he
weighed 120 pounds.
He did.
Wet, man.
God, dude, that sucker can move out like grease lightning.
He was awesome.
Man. He was. Freaking guy.
Did you know that this summer, GoodRx can be your go-to solution for savings on all your prescription needs? It's time to make the most out of your everyday health while keeping more money in your pocket. GoodRx is the ultimate money-saving tool that's fast, easy, and absolutely free to use.
With GoodRx, you can instantly find discounts, compare prices for your medication, and it's as simple as searching for your prescriptions on the GoodRx website or app and showing your discount at the pharmacy counter. That's it. Here's the thing. GoodRx works for everyone, whether you have insurance or not. So even if you do, GoodRx can still beat your copay price, so go check that. It's a win-win situation that just puts money back in your wallet. Let me tell you about my own experience with GoodRx. I was blown away by how much I saved on allergy meds this spring. That not only did I find incredible discounts, I also discovered that GoodRx beat all of my insurance prices. I've shared this incredible resource with all of my family and friends too, and they've been amazed by the savings they found using GoodRx. Don't miss out on this opportunity to save up to 80% at the pharmacy. Go take control of your healthcare costs and make the most out of your summer. So here's what I want you to do. For simple, smart savings on your prescriptions, go check out GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TNQ. That's goodrx.com/TNQ.
With that said, I got my record and I looked at it and I'm like, okay, I'm not as like almost me and Ensign Herbert at the time won a majority of the swims, so which was great. We actually won the long swim out at the island, all that good stuff. So I was a great swimmer, a horrible runner, but the swimming kind of kept me out of hot water with the running, you know. And I was smarter than most, so all my scores were real high on tests and stuff like that. But
How are you at the O course?
Decent, like upper third.
I would get in trouble because I could run the O course pretty well, and so that's why you cut me a lot of slack.
It's like upper body
It is,
O
right?
course,
Yeah.
right?
Man.
I mean, I could climb like a monkey, but I just couldn't.
Me too.
Run. I couldn't run out of sight in a day, man. So
You clogged me with a freaking calendar, man.
yeah, it was bad. So I wanted to get a really good idea of how I did in buds so that I had a perspective. And any instructor in my little phase that we had a problem with as instructors, I would plop him down with his record and be like, here, why don't you see how you did it, buds?
Is that how you did that?
Before
really-
you start hammering these kids, buds is already hard enough.
Yeah.
You don't need to make it harder as an instructor, right? And that's what instructors are to facilitate the event. The students are to put themselves through the event. We're there to make sure they do it right, make sure they're safe, and catch them if they're cheating.
That's right. Dude, look, it said if you're not cheating, you're not trying. If you get caught, fess up. I always did that.
You did.
Thank
and you
you.
always had a smile on your face.
I did. Thank you very much. From an instructor right here in the flesh.
So,
Thank you very much. Just to validate one little piece of me.
that's what I liked about you so much in buds was the fact you always had a smile on your face. You didn't take it serious. Like when I got there, man, I was so thrilled to just be there.
Same. I thought I was in the
And
books.
everything that we were doing, I was like always excited about. I was kind of I'm not one of those like openly excited people, but for me, it was kind of like, man, this is the coolest thing. I got friends that are on ships and friends that are doing, chip and paint on aircraft carriers, and here I am running around in the sun, the sand, everything else. It was awesome. So I loved it. I loved the whole buds experience. Loved SEAL team. Yeah, it's probably why I stayed so long.
Now, going back and getting to hang out with the guys that are all my generations running the show, and then hearing them talk to the students, the humor, you get the humor. Like when you're going through it, you don't. It's like when someone's coming on you, it's like, man, shit, that ain't funny. But like when you're standing on the other side of it, it's hilarious. And if you know team guys, and that's kind of our rite of passage. It's almost like you got to go to buds, you got to go into the SEAL teams, you got to do all of this, and then when you get out, you get to get in a fraternity. Then you become a member because that's when you truly appreciate each individual's humor about it.
It is super hard to. There is no comparison, in my opinion, for any other training on the planet. So we can talk. I have a lot of great friends that aren't SEALs, but unless you're a SEAL, unless you went through buds, you are never going to get it. Even though they say they do, they don't. And a lot of it is hell week, but there is just a weird difference about SEALs than anybody else that I really enjoyed and liked. And sometimes I fit in great, sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I was an awesome team guy, sometimes I stunk up the place. But overall, man, it was the right place for me, you know. But as an instructor, you don't need to make buds harder. Instructors get there, and all of a sudden, it's kind of sometimes they're like, "Well, we're going to make this harder, right? I'm gonna do stuff to the students that, you know, that was never done to me, or you know, they want extracurricular activities. They show up after work and they start punishing the students. Man,
I know one dude
shut that stuff
who
down
did that,
quickly.
and it followed him into the teams. Like I've never run across any other operator when I say his name, everyone's like, "Fuck."
Well, you got to remember, right? These kids that are going through buds, assuming they make it through Hell Week, and once they make it through Hell Week, I don't want to say you're a team guy, but you have really, you know,
Done something.
80% of the other people are already gone.
Right.
So you'll lose another 5% in the rest of the phases, but you know.
Do you think the next hardest phase to go through is pool comp?
It's different for everybody. That Hell Week's the one.
Yeah,
That
see, so for me, pool comp was easy.
people are freaking breeze.
Because
to it.
I spent my whole life in a pool, right? We had a pool in the backyard, and I lived in that thing in Arizona in the heat.
Yeah.
So, like drown proofing, stuff like that. Guys found
that's the worst.
Found
man.
that so
Yes.
hard. And for me, it was kind of like, this is a break. This is awesome.
Some people never been on
I can do this
scuba.
all day long.
They've never
all day
been
long.
been underwater like that. And then when you get underwater, they've never been in a fight underwater, because that's what happens to us. Like instructors come down there and literally whip your ass in the water. And if you've never had that happen to you,
Here's the big thing on pool comp, man. If you remain calm, no matter what they do, i.e. don't react, then pool comp is easy. But if you start fighting the instructor,
shit. I'm gonna tell you, I laid there like a dead fish, and I started to float off. You're like, you said not to do nothing, so they pulled me in the tongue. Like, what's wrong with? Thought you were dead. You're like, you said don't do anything. And I failed, and they put me on this thing called the weeping wall. I was like, bro, I mean, you were talking about scared to death, because they got your oxygen. I mean, it's panic, confusion, out of sequence. It's the most technical. Hell Week's it's buds, right? It's what
try
does it
to
us.
undo what they do, and if you can't,
It's
take
behind
the
you. You
tanks
can't
off,
see
man.
it. Then you got to take your stuff off on it. You can't see down there. No mask. That sucker's already gone. They probably took a dump in it and tried to put it back on your face, man. You're
Come
like,
on, man.
dude.
That is not. That pool comp is no.
It's the worst.
It is not the worst.
One of my favorite
It's the most.
things.
I'm at like in a.
Anything in the water for me was like a super break, but so pool comp for me is every time we went on a conditioning run or every time we did a time run, that was pool comp for me because it was like
Everybody, Buds is designed. You told me this too. It's like Buds is designed to find your weakness and exploit it, and like, and if your buddy has one, then you're gonna feel that. So like some guys, no matter how hard they beat us, could run like I'm talking on the beach, wet and sandy, shin deep water, and I'm talking hauling ass. And then you put them in the water and they'll swim in circles.
we had Roberto Salazar's brother in my Buds class. So Roberto Salazar was a, Olympic marathoner. His brother was a better runner than him, better all the way around. The guy ran, I think, the first 4-mile time run in like 18 minutes.
No, see,
Gosh.
that's what I'm saying. That's in the sand on the
In the
beach.
sand with pants on.
and
oh
boots.
my gosh.
Anyway, you couldn't quote unquote quit in the first 2 weeks of first phase, which it's changed a little bit now. But the first 2 weeks, first phase was pre-training really, but it was still first phase. But you weren't allowed to quit, and you weren't. I think at that point you hadn't put a Zodiac on your head yet either. But that Friday afternoon of the second week, you were allowed to quit. He quit.
Really?
So here's a guy that could run like the wind, and you'd think that, man, Buds is going to be a breeze for him. But he had already had enough at that point and was like, no, I'm checking out.
Do you
the
think
other
it
stuff
was
that gets
the mental, the discipline, and the just constant berating?
They had-
Yeah, but so you call it berating, but it's not, right? In other words, we aren't attacking a person.
Right.
We may be hitting you psychologically
That's
to
what I mean.
see whether or not you're going to cower or curl up in a, I call them thumb suckers, right? You're going to curl up in a ball and suck your thumb because life is so hard, right? Or are you going to rise to the occasion, right? So we're going to hit you with, hey, you're holding up your whole team. You're holding up the boat crew. You're dragging everybody down with you.
Because the situation's kicking your ass.
Yeah.
We've made that a
So the thing is, you can't make it personal to the, like, you're ugly, your mom dresses you funny. You don't do those kind of comments
Personal
to a
thing.
student. You don't personally attack them, but you attack their ability in order
be a teammate,
in order
yeah.
to see whether or not they're going to say, you're right. I am holding everybody back. So I'm going to put out more and I am going to try to achieve at a higher level so that I don't, hurt my teammates. Because in combat, that's what's the problem. That's the problem, right? Mm-hmm. Combat, you don't want a guy who's going to quit.
Right.
And in other words, when things get really, really tough, you need a guy that's going to rise above what everybody else would rise above.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. It's like right in the middle of going through phase, you're in hell. The world's collapsing around you. People are freaking out and screaming. All of a sudden, here comes this instructor with his hair perfectly combed, with a hat, cup of coffee. Maybe he's got his khakis on. He's real calm. Standing in the chaos with you right here going, I don't know. You think you're doing a good job? I don't know if you're doing a good job or not. And then you just don't, there's two worlds going on in front of you like that. And you're like, what the? And then there's somebody on the loudspeaker going, oh God, it's warm in this truck. And these donuts are so good. And I mean, they're not even talking to you, but they're just like right around you and you can't.
I was fortunate enough to have really 3 people, but 2 people on the Hell Week shifts that I ran was Pat Stone.
So good. He got my Hammer Award.
And Beck, right? John Beck. And
which one?
John Beck.
Check. Yeah.
Instructor Reno was awesome, but
Getka was terrifying.
During Hell Week, when we would run, I was run the mid shift.
Pat Stone.
Beck and Pat Stone, but Beck was always on the radio. He was the one that was always trying to make everybody cry.
He could come up with,
and it was insane,
mouth, dude.
It would just go on the whole time.
What are you even talking about?
And he's on the loudspeaker,
following you in the vehicle with his screaming behind you,
just constantly reminding you how much you suck. And
there's a baby crying. We got this baby crying tape that you put on the speaker.
I made him stop.
So there's constantly a freaking baby crying, and this guy's going, "Oh, this Q-tip in my ear. You can't believe how good this feels." And then it's just like people lose their mind, dude. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
I remember one night I made Beck turn that off because I'm like, dude,
oh my God.
I go, stop already with the baby crying thing, or it was that
laugh box
singer was having a meltdown and they put it on a record and it was him sobbing and he would play that sobbing.
And then that clown laughing. There was a clown laughing. I don't know where they found this crap, man.
John Beck found all that stuff.
This is before XM radio and everything. Like, he had to go look for that.
It was hilarious.
That's a torturous sumbitch. And Pat Stone, dude, he was when you look at this guy, he's like, oh, that's my Uncle Pat Stone. He'd be the greatest guy ever. He's a medic. He's supposed to help you.
He was sadistic.
Oh my God.
I would laugh my guts out.
I bet. How could you not? That's why I always wanted to go back. I was like, I don't know how you guys.
I would well, you saw a little bit of that every night. I would take you to the surf zone and sit on the berm and before I went to class.
You just had such a pleasurable time about it. Like it was the both of satisfying, doing your job as well, kind of deal. The special attention I got.
I tell you, man, I got to give it to you. You always have a smile on your face, no matter what I did.
Okay, so every time I would run down to the beach or I had to run to the pool, I always try to come up with something to say to you on the way back over.
That's funny.
One of the instructors had just gotten a video camera and like a camcorder, and had gone out and videoed some of the guys. And somehow a little clip of that footage got back to us while we were married. And there's a video of Marcus. I think you're sitting under the boat.
Yeah,
there's a couple of guys underneath the boat. And they look like shit. Like the guys look just beat down. And the instructor walks over with his camcorder and he's like, hey, Marcus.
It was farmery.
One of your best friend just quit. What do you think about that? You gonna quit? And Marcus looks up, no sir. And he goes, well, your friend quit. You're not gonna quit? And he goes, I got more friends.
It was in the moment, okay? I was having a bad day.
But that's what he said, and I was like, I freaking love him. But it was so neat to actually be able to see him in that moment.
That was back in the 1900s.
These stories.
What are you talking about, man? That was just like last week.
Right. And one of the other things that I find fascinating with Buds, because Marcus has several friends that are still instructors, and when we go back to Coronado, we're able to go over there. The comics, the artwork that the students do.
She loves those.
About the instructors?
Yeah, about the instructors.
I freaking love that. So
that's pretty funny.
I think we don't ever video the skits, but the comics that's a good part we do. That's funny.
And there's like a record book of it, that there's somebody that's actually drawing a comic of the instructors.
It's good because some classes have guys that used to draw, and they could draw for Disney. Or
comic books, yeah.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, they can really freaking go to town.
Graphic artists.
And some of the instructors get pissed when they don't draw them. They're like, hey, I need my comic.
But do you know the history of that? Who started that?
Don't remember that happening in my little stint there.
Okay.
I don't remember that. If it happened, and obviously I wasn't one of the ones they drew, but I don't remember that happening. I think there's random stuff, but as far as a tradition...
Yeah, I guess the phase officer probably keeps that around. Like if he comes in, he's like, hey, I want y'all to do this.
It's possible.
Well, when we went...
that wasn't a thing when I was there that I know of.
This guy, one of Marcus's teammates, he was the instructor at the time, pulled out all these comic books. I mean, it looked like 15 or 20 of them. And I got to sit down and just flip through them. And I thought, that is a cool freaking tradition to be able to...
Well, I took her back. We've been back a few times. We went to, in the first phase, and tried to look at the Hell Week manuals. And mine's the only class that's missing. So I didn't even get a chance. I knew I was a shitbag, so you don't have to tell me. You don't have to show me.
I didn't. I had you working with me as a green or
yeah, you damn sure did for a while.
Brown shirt.
That's right.
Yeah,
I got assigned to you over in PTR.
That was awesome.
It was. Well, I think I got to enjoy it too much. That's why I got in so much trouble because instructors didn't like me.
Is that when you got hurt?
Yeah, after I broke my leg, it's when he moved me over there, and then. You know, I kind of became buddies, but I'm still in. It was weird because then I was still a student. So as soon as I got back in the phase, man, it was
whatever.
Yeah, and then I would run into you. I would run into me everywhere. I don't know if you remember the HSV out in the middle of the ocean somewhere, and I walked into the skiff, and you were in there.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the most random places outside the country. I'm like, what the heck? And then you went
because I was everywhere.
You were.
That's what I'm saying, man.
I can't get away from this freaking guy, dude. I came up from a submarine and got up on this boat. There's one of them on the planet that we had. It was a test and evaluation thing.
Bed, yeah.
And then, where'd you go after phase? How'd you get over to JTAC?
So I was at Team 3, and when Admiral Olson obviously did SEAL 2000, all that stuff, and then 9/11 happened.
Oh yeah.
So
right.
I was in. Trying to finish up my degree and at Buds, and 9/11 happened. So I called Commander Curtis, who was the CEO of Team 3 at the time. I said, hey, I want to come back, obviously. And he's like, all right, we'll get it in the works. So I think it was maybe a month or so later that I got back over to Team 3. But now I'm at Team 3 as a warrant. And at that point, we had 3 task units at the team, still only 6 platoons. So they divided them up into 3 task units, and they didn't have any of the lieutenant commanders and the task unit commanders.
Yeah,
so
that wasn't even a thing, right?
Adam Curtis actually was like, he took me and another warrant, and then Steve Schultz, who was the LDO, and he's like, you're the task unit commanders, so go.
Did they move you over to LDO? Is that what you said? You got switched?
I didn't move over to LDO until later.
Oh, okay, check.
I actually became training officer at Team 3 for a little bit.
You're a full line, right? You were in that?
I was in LDO.
Okay, check.
So
because they switched those too, right?
Well, they got rid of LDOs.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Probably 6-8 years ago.
Yeah.
Probably. I don't know, something like that. And they only have warrants now and full line.
LDO
so
means limited duty officer.
Full line, and I could have because I had a degree. But LDO was designed for the non-degreed dudes to make it into an officer program. Uniform's the same, everything's the same. The only thing you can't do as an LDO that you could do as a line officer was be the CO of a
skipper,
combat unit. Right? You could be a CO of a non-combat unit, but not a combat unit. So you couldn't be a CO of a SEAL team or something like that. But anyway, as a warrant, being task unit guy, then obviously we trained up. I trained up my task unit, running them everywhere, doing what we needed to do, and then we deployed to Afghanistan. And we were there for 9 months in Kandahar, and they moved us to Ali al-Salim.
Oh, cool. You were on the first of that?
And we were the guys that were the first night in on, OIF. Like, we literally flew in onto the Alpha Peninsula.
You had a kick-ass career, man.
Camp
Rhino, all that.
How soon after 9/11 did they actually deploy y'all?
Oh, right away.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I was still at Buds, so I had to. It took me. Well, it was September. I didn't get back over to the team for 5 months. So there were guys that already had gone, and here I am in a task unit. So I didn't get over there for a year after all that.
3 was the first ones over there, anyways. Though.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah,
Chief. Freaking name. I remember talking to them guys. That was cool too. First one's in.
Yeah.
What I mean, that had to be like complete Wild West going over there that early.
I think the first guys getting over there, everybody's trying to figure everything out. Yeah, but nobody was equipped. Like, we didn't have vehicles and all that stuff for body armor or any of that kind of stuff.
Well,
So I'm a full 100% against body armor. Period. Dot. I don't think you take a special warfare SEAL and put them in body armor to do anything. Maybe I'm too old school for that, but I am not risk averse. In other words, for me, I'd rather be able to move fast and quick with a group of guys than...
That's the only thing that saved my life, is I didn't have body armor on.
I don't think we should be wearing body armor. So everybody can slay me however they want, but that's not what SEALs were designed to do. In my opinion, we weren't designed to drive around in 50,000-pound vehicles. We weren't even designed, in my opinion, to drive around in Humvees. So... SEALs are supposed to be swimming and sneaking and taking it to the bad guys on their own terms, i.e., not in military boots and military uniforms. We should be guerrilla warfare fighters, in my opinion. So
sure, like
I refer to SEALs as commandos and other things. Guys have a heart attack because you can't call us that, and it's like, man, I come from the post-Vietnam world. Prior to all this other craziness, right in the middle. And for me, it's, the night I went into Iraq. So we were on the ground first night. I weighed, at that point, I was running about 210. I weighed 330 pounds.
Wow.
Without a rucksack. That was just my, let's call it first, second line gear, right? That was just my radios, my 40 mic, my, I think we were running M4s, but it was just that stuff.
I was over 300 pounds.
I was 320 pounds, 330 pounds.
Most every guy was over here.
And I'm just like, this is insane. How can you move? And we got it when we landed, man. We were in that reclaimed area where they had all the dikes on the Alpha Peninsula, right by the big metering manifold facility, and it was all mud. And I can remember, I'm the first guy on the Hilo, last guy off. I get off the Hilo. I'm standing 2 feet of mud. The tailgate's like right behind my knees when they lift it off. I didn't even I couldn't even move. I had to wait till the Hilo lifted off for me to move because there were already, all those holes from everybody else in front of me. And I'm watching them trying to slug through this stuff, and I looked over to my right, and there's a road, and it's way up on a berm. I mean, it's high. And I'm watching them, looking at the road, and I'm like, I need to get where I need to go so I can get the JTAC world moving.
Yeah.
And so I walked over to the road. Took me maybe 15 steps to get there. I got in the road and I sprinted down. I got there way before everybody else, and I think Commander Curtis was pissed because he's like, how'd you get here so quick? Because you're up there silhouetted on the road, bad guys all around. And I wasn't trying to be reckless, but I'm like, I need to get there so we can get the ball rolling with the aircraft.
Yeah.
And this walking in the mud stuff, to me, puts us in a greater vulnerability than being silhouetted up on the road.
That's the worst over there. That moon dust too after it rains.
So,
It's like
this was like Denmark. They had put the dikes in and pumped the water out.
Oh, check.
To get more land, you know what I'm saying, around this facility.
Wow.
So it was, I call it reclaimed, but crazy.
That is crazy.
How long were you over there?
We spent probably a month.
Yeah, check.
Because we followed Manis and everybody, one Mardiv, all the way to Baghdad. We were in Baghdad for probably 10 days and then turned over to Team 5. But all in all, man, we were gone for about a year-ish, because we were already in Afghanistan. And then they turned us around because we were in country to go do the Alpha thing the first night.
Wow.
So, Alpha Peninsula, and I remember doing it.
We did. It was the Peninsula, the metering manifold facility, and the
GoPlats?
Maybot and
Kayot, yeah. I was there for all that.
So it was all of that at the same time, simultaneously. Man, we had, 10 F-18s, a couple of, probably 4 A-6s at the time.
I remember walking off the plane and had a Vietnam flak jacket on. And then we were swapping body armor and gear when we got in there.
Yeah, the gear thing was interesting.
So, where were you during Red Wing? Because you were still in.
Correct. I was probably already up in Fallon, right?
I just left you.
That's right. So
I was just with him, and I just left.
That's right. So you showed up.
And I mean just left.
You showed up in Fallon in January, because I remember we started the class January 2nd or 3rd. We did the academics, which is 2 weeks, and then that year they have what they call pogonip. It's a freezing fog. In other words, it's really foggy because it was humid the summer before, a lot of moisture, whatever. But the fog freezes, and so you have this 100-foot layer. It's just 100 feet high. Above that, it's super sunny. But for the bottom 100 feet, it's fog and it's frozen. So all the fences and everything, it's like it's covered with snow. And that lasted 2 months. We had 4 clear days out of 60 days.
I was there for that whole
And
thing.
I remember talking to his mass chief.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And after the 2 weeks,
Because I was in Hawaii, so they let.
and I'm like, what do you want me to do with this kid? You know?
You're like, I've had him before.
I can't get rid of this bastard. He keeps following me everywhere.
So what do you want me to do? And he's like, is there any problem to keep him there? I go, we can send him back, but you're just going to have to fly him back out again. And I go, I don't know when this is going to clear up. So I'd rather just keep him, and we'll have him do, busy work.
He can do push-ups the whole time.
Until we can get out there. Did I treat you like a bud student?
Yeah, it was awesome. No,
Did
it
I
was great.
treat you like a bud student? No. See, so again, adult experience. But,
No, it wasn't buds. It was different. It was.
But we
yeah.
tried, right? Our goal was to get him qualified, and we wanted to get all the other kids back because we sent all the other kids home.
Everybody else got to go home.
And
I was the only one that had to stay.
we just kept him because his boss. I called everybody's bosses. So what do you want me to do with him?
Yeah.
They're like, we'll send him back out. So.
And this is JTAC school.
Correct. The JTEC course. So I don't know. 60 days later, right? It cleared up. We got enough aircraft to kind of get you done. I think you left us early May-ish, probably.
Oh, wow. That was right before.
And then you turned around like within 3-4 weeks.
I came off the island, went straight out to him, stayed there until I left, went back to the team, packed up.
Yeah. So it was right before that.
That had to be rough
I remember
on you.
because as soon as I got into Afghanistan, I started calling. Artillery was my primary. We didn't really, we studied that, but not as hard as the other stuff. I remember that. And then once they started pushing me out.
Yeah, and I wasn't, we just weren't a big, we had to call for fire, but SEAL team doesn't usually, up to that point, we didn't really call for fire very much. We used helicopters, so we were doing what they call, 5 lines for the Hilos, but we weren't calling in artillery.
Yeah.
Right? So we did it. We actually had 105s out there, and you guys got to use
I got to do that,
them.
yeah.
So we exposed them to it, but we really weren't doing a good job at that point of creating guys that could do call for fire. So
That's a best course.
So when Red Wing went down, had you put any of the other guys through buds?
So the only one I didn't see right before that happened was Murphy. I had Dietz, and I think I had him out to do currency. As far as anybody else in that whole task unit, no.
Who's your last class out of Buds? Who's the last class you put through?
Which class? Yeah.
As far as when I was a BUDS instructor, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I left there, like I said, February of... I was the advanced training officer, so it would have to be right about 9/11 time.
9/11, that's right, yeah.
Right about 9/11 time would be the last class. So, for me.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
But I had Dietz and Axelson out to do currency
Check.
before... I can't remember. It was in that same time period, like April-ish, I think. If I have it right, they could have come out before the class. I don't remember. But I know I had them both out there to do currency, but I had never met Murphy.
I know.
So.
Obviously it affected like all team guys emotionally, that whole thing, but being almost like a father figure, like this instructor figure to them, that had to be hard on you too.
All that kind of stuff is devastating. Anytime we lose people, it's devastating. Especially when you lose them, and from my perspective, obviously things could have been different. So I always ran things not completely differently, but I ran things a lot more kind of by the training, by the book than some other people did. That kind of thing. So yeah, it was hard. You remember calling me September, right after that? I had a long conversation.
I always check in with you.
So
I can't get away from it. Now you live down the road. We didn't live down the road from each other. I'm not even
come
kidding.
on, man.
He
Again,
likes it. He likes it.
You get to spend
It's
time
an
with me.
honor. Yeah.
You get to spend
I
time.
told you about this guy, dude. It's great, right? Funniest.
Come on, man.
Come on,
Well,
man.
what a career you had. 34 years.
So yeah, it was kind of weird being a civilian running the whole program, but I was a GS, and running that whole program up there. We built it from 2 guys to 22 guys in the time I was up there. So
Wow.
So when you get out, you transfer here. Now you're mentoring kids.
yeah, so when we traveled around for a year after I retired. So I retired active duty in 09, late 09, and did the GS thing until middle of 16 and left. And I had just gotten to the point where I was kind of done. You know,
I hear a lot of guys saying that.
you know, I had reached that point where I'm like, if I don't go do something else now, then I'm stuck here. I might as well stay till I'm 62 or 65 teaching JTAC courses, and I didn't want to do that. So, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. So it was really a tough time for me. That transition was horrible. Drove around in an RV and then ended up here because of Lucky. So Lucky was in my JTAC course. We always had a guy in a flight suit, commander typically, who was like the co-head of the thing, even though we're at a naval air station, and so they always put a flight suit in charge of JTAC course once we kind of changed how we did things and made it a lot bigger, had our own building. So Lucky was the guy in the seat, and he would take care of getting all the air and everything else and the coordination and everything. He wasn't an instructor per se, but he and I would kind of co-do that. We'd spend a lot of time in the off time talking. So I ended up in Texas because one, we really liked it, and two, I kind of wanted. He and I had kind of been a handshake in my office one day, or his office, one of the two. Said, hey, when I get out, I'll spend some time traveling around and we'll get together and we'll start a business. Because both of us was kind of, hey, business seems like the next big adventure for both of us, you know. So I got here and we had no clue what we were gonna do. We ended up opening up a holding company and then actually 5 other companies underneath it, LLCs. Got rid of 3 of those, but kept 2 of them. One was basically we were doing we call it mental coaching, and I know you've got you're steeped in that kind of stuff for a lot longer than we have, but
I learned it from y'all though.
Under Old 18 Information Services, we can talk about what Old 18 means here in a minute, but basically what we were doing, we got invited to Sam Houston for the baseball team and the golf team, and we created a whole course on how to build mental toughness, right? We think it can be taught. I'm 100% believer that you can. If you are a thumbsucker and you're the type of guy that always lays around in the fetal position crying in your soup, I believe if you really have the desire, you can basically give yourself the belief to make it through anything. And that's really what it boils down to, is
that's
buds.
100%
right?
true.
Yeah.
Buds or anything else, if you believe you can do it and you have the physical capability to do it, but if you believe you can do it and you got the drive or desire, we call it passion, but really it's drive, then you can succeed at whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
So we basically run these kids through a 10-hour program to do that, to teach them what we believe, and we spent a lot of time kind of developing it. But we spent a lot of time on the personal side of things, and we would start that first, which was really the wrong approach. So in learning the wrong approach first, we kind of tighten that up later on.
That's what we do.
But we learned from our mistakes, but the whole thing was, hey, can you teach someone mental toughness? Well, the golf team, I don't want to say they were obscure. They had won some conference championships and stuff like that, but now they consistently win it. And they're in the big leagues now when it comes to golf programs. I mean, they went, to the Nationals for the first time ever, that kind of thing. So the baseball team actually
they're real good.
Did fantastic. And so what we were teaching, that kind of caught on. And then we did a lot of other universities at the collegiate level. And again, here we are spending all this time on talking to them about these personal things. Like if you're gonna go to Buds, or I'm gonna go to Buds, and I'm gonna do something legendary, then I can't have all this weight. I can't be thinking about holding on too tight, thinking about the wife and kids and that kind of thing. You have to be able to block out all the negative influences. So you have to talk about what those negative influences are. So we spent all this time talking about that stuff. So what we finally did was, that's when we wrote the book. We didn't write a book and there's no Trident on the cover or anything like that. There's a There's a guy surfacing in a dragger and an F-14 because Lucky started out in F-14s. But we took all the basic stuff that we were teaching and put it in that book. It's called Unwavered. And it has to do with the unwavered self-belief, right? If you have unwavering self-belief, then you can accomplish anything. And so that's why the title is Unwavered. And the website's also unwavered, but it's unwave.red. I never knew you could do other things other than .com and .net, so it's unwave.red.
Oh, nice.
But we didn't put it on Amazon or anything else because the intent wasn't to go out and sell it and make $1 million and sell the Trident. The goal was to have be able to hand out 10 of these and say, here, read this before we ever get here. Because the stuff we really need to talk to you about are the other things: talent, passion, professionalism. Are our 3 kind of starting points.
When you said that earlier,
how can people buy it?
Just go to unwave.red and they can buy it. So
Okay.
you said earlier those words that we use, like drive. When we say that, it means it feels like someone's inside of you driving you, and like you can't do anything about it. Like you want to be there. It's everything you do is consistently focused in that direction.
you were talking about an all-consuming mindset, right?
It gets you in every direction, mind, body, and spirit. Can't get away
That's
from
the
it.
only thing you're thinking about. And if you allow all these external influences, we call them cancers, all the external influences to weigh you down, you're never going to make it, man.
Right.
You got a negative brother, sister, mom, dad, friends, you got all these people, hey, let's go drink beer. No, I need to train, and if you don't have the strength to say, no, I need to train, then you don't have the drive, then you're never going to make it in anything. You can't become a professional golfer if you're out,
Right.
drinking with your buddies every night. It's not going to happen. So if you're not all consumed by whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, then you're not going to accomplish it. It's not going to happen. When I went to Bud's, man, there was nothing else for me. Nothing. No girlfriend, no nothing. It was that was it. And I ate, lived, and breathed becoming a SEAL.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we put in there. It's kind of a 100,000-foot view. We can talk for days on that kind of stuff, but
And what's Old 18?
so Old 18 is really Old 18 Outfitters is the other company that we still have, and it's primarily fishing rods, which
Nice.
I am personally not the fisherman. Right? I am.
He is.
Lucky is, and then his brother-in-law, his name's Jake Brewer, master rod builder. He'd been building rods since American Rodsmith was around and all these Texas companies, and so Jake is like the savant when it comes to a fishing rod. Like, he can touch it and tell you exactly what power it is and the tip
how
speed
funny.
and all these other things. I mean, it's crazy. So the 3 of us, he came in. We were using an office in the building he was working in to get this, unwavered, these mental coaching kind of going. And he walks in and he's like, "Man, people in the fishing world, they're really greedy, man. They're getting these rods real cheap and they're selling them for $200. And we just kind of looked at each other and like, what if we, got a rod and sold it for $80? And that really started that whole Old 18 Outfitters. I'm there because I really wanted that company to become an outfitter place, where we talk outdoor stuff.
Where you go do.
And I had no clue about business, so we're about 5 years old and it's going pretty strong, but we could be stronger, but we don't have the liquid cash to go to that next level, and create this huge company that sells everything else,
Yeah.
So but locally, man, especially, we are nationwide. It's old18.com, and that, like I said, primarily fishing rods. But Old 18 we wanted something that kind of echoed Texas history. If you go back to 1835, 36, when Sam Houston was getting ready for the war,
Yeah.
That's San Jacinto
Right.
after the Alamo.
right? So he was getting ready. He took all the younger guys out of the towns and stuff like that, and they were training up to go against Santa Ana, right? So, town of Gonzales.
Yep.
Come and take a flag. Everybody knows it, right? You got it right up there.
Well, I have an original.
Come and take
a real one.
Nice.
The,
Wow.
the original Gonzales flag, the battle flag, was lost in the war. It was made from the wives' wedding dresses.
Exactly.
The one I have is made from my wife's wedding dress.
Nice.
Yeah.
Our friends, the Junk Gypsies out of Round Top, Texas, they made it for him.
That's
They
cool.
asked me for the lining
It's
of
real
my
cool,
wedding
man.
dress.
So, what was left in the town of Gonzales? So, we would love to get big enough so that we can pump some money into Gonzales.
We know a lot of people. That's a great town.
But we're not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And we didn't want to hijack the history, but we did. We hijacked the history because it meant something to us. SEALs, fighter pilots, they're the trigger pullers, and they're first in, right? So the town of Gonzales, everybody's gone except for the older gentlemen and the wives, and they come to get the cannon that they had given them to fight off the Indians, right? So we're talking, everybody thinks come and take a cannon's huge. It's just really a bitty thing.
Small.
I have a replica of it at the house.
Little bitty thing.
Yeah.
But they wanted it back. So depending on what history you read, there was 50 to 150 of the dragoons that came back to get it. And when they showed up on the other side of the river, like, give us our cannon, right? So they sat there. This thing's going on for a week. And
so this day and age, it would be like someone loaning you a shotgun.
Correct.
And then they came back wanting the shotgun.
Correct.
They gave you a shotgun to defend.
And they sent 150 people.
Yeah, 150. This is the size of the cannon. I have it somewhere. It's literally.
It's in your office.
It's in my office.
Yeah. So what's left in the town of Gonzales are 18 old dudes,
Oh, nice.
right? And they're standing on the other side of the river, and they're like, "Hey, you want your cannon? Come and take it, right? Come and get it, big fella." So they called those guys the old Gonzales 18 or the old 18.
I love it.
And so because of SEALs and all that stuff, we named it that because it meant something to us. Because we're always the people that are on the ground first, right? We're always the people that are not just first, but way before everybody else. Just like
We're the ones that keep
UDT
that stuff
guys.
alive. We keep those sayings and all that stuff alive because
UDT guys
it's
in World
important to
War
us.
II, man, they had to go clear the beach obstacles before everybody else came in. And a lot of those guys got just utterly killed just clearing obstacles. Way before, the night before, 2 nights before, a week before a beach landing.
That's right.
You know? And so if you go back in SEAL history, you got the Naval Combat and Demolition Units, the
NCDs.
OSS, you got the UDT guys, there are all that mixed into our history.
Yeah.
And so you got a long-standing history of guys being on the ground or in the water first. And
all those videos of everybody
happen.
storming the beach and coming across, who do you think's filmed? There's people filming that. Who do you think came in before that? We did. And we left signs.
Yeah.
We left signs for them. Like, hey, welcome to the war.
UDT was here first.
We were here first, no matter what anybody says. Y'all know that.
So we were actually blessed to be able to go to Peleliu.
Oh, nice.
Back in 2014 with a World War II Marine. He was like 92 at the time.
Yeah.
And we got to go to Orange Beach. That was a really cool.
It's way down there. Beautiful place.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, man, when you go back and you think about the guts those dudes had to have, man. It's
unbelievable.
amazing.
Yeah, it really
Absolutely
is.
amazing.
It's a storm, especially at Normandy, man. The bunkers, because I didn't know this, but we didn't hit any of those, so they were all active by the time we showed up.
It's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. So, I don't know. For me, that's why SEAL Team was so special to me, was because we were in there before everybody else, right? And your ability to survive was based on your ability to be, to fight on their terms, to be quiet, to be sneaky, to know their tactics, to be able to, it was super challenging.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the other services, don't take that the wrong way. Any kind of warfare is super challenging,
Right.
obviously. But this was different. And I really bought into the whole, I still have my old videotape. I don't even remember where I got it, but someone special, right? That was a videotape that SEALs nowadays, I don't think they get to see. But that was a really, really old video about, about SEAL Team, And SEAL Team, like when I got in, man, SEAL Team was like 20 years old. It wasn't really that old, And so, and I had gotten to the East Coast right after Team 4 had been formed. I mean, so as I was going through budget, you had Team 1 and Team 2. So on my little dream sheet, I put Team 2, Team 1, SDV.
Which those were your only choices.
That was the only choices we had at that point. So luckily, I got to Team 2, and there was all sorts of strategy. Put the one you don't want to go to first and everything. And I was just like, no, I'm going to put where I want to go. And if I end up somewhere else, that's fine too. But I was, like I said, man, I couldn't wait to get up in the morning. Couldn't wait to get to the team area.
I was the same way.
I loved it.
Every day.
Absolutely loved it. So
I went straight to special deliveries, so I got Hawaii right out of the bat. But I did, man. I loved all the training trips. Anytime you walk in and your chief, your boss, sitting there looking at you in a pair of shorts with a grin on, is like, hey, I'm going to send you to this badass place so you could do this. And I'm just like, are you kidding me?
I as a punishment, not really a punishment, but it was kind of a punishment because I was my first platoon commander in my post platoon evaluation put in one of the bullets was lacks a refined sense of tact. So that was kind of what framed me for my first platoon because I was very outspoken because I was very, hey, this is the way we learn, this is the way we should do it.
Yeah.
This is the way it works, And so with that said, I was sent to go do combat swimmer, which everybody knew I hated my platoon. Just despised doing combat swimmer.
That's the hardest thing.
And they sent me to France to work with the commander.
Which those guys,
who that's all they do is dive.
That's all they do.
They wake up in the morning with they show up to muster with their wetsuits on and their dive rig over their shoulder.
And you were involved in one of the craziest missions of SEAL
but this
history.
is before, right? This is before that, right?
Oh,
This is
yeah.
that was like my third, fourth platoon, but this is before that, man. This is like as a brand new guy.
Yeah.
They sent me to Marine Corps Scout Sniper Instructor course and to go dive with the Commando Bear. I'm just like, gotta be
my
kidding
chief
me,
went
man.
through that dive course, and he would, when we were going through dive phase, he'd look at he's like, you need black right here, put more black right here. This is too I mean, he said that them and the Germans can freaking dive.
I never went to any of the German stuff. Although,
Those dudes can dive.
At Team 2 at the time, the two combat swimmer gurus were Aaron Griffin and his name's right in my head. It'll come to me. But those guys, they just lived and breathed combat swimmer, and that they were the instructors at Team 2, and they had both been through, Commando Bear stuff and the Germans, and they've been through all those courses, and it was great instruction.
Yeah.
It was fantastic instruction.
That's awesome.
And
You never know how far you can take something until you see somebody's put some work into it.
yeah, Chuck Williams was the other guy.
Nice. So for Unwavered, can people still hire y'all to come out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure.
So they just go on Unwavered and
Yeah, so my email for that is randy@unwave.red.
unwave.red.
And
Okay.
what do you got coming up? What do you want on the plans? Anything?
As far as in near term, no. So working every day with really the fishing rod company, making that, just old 18 Outfitters, making that what it needs to be.
Well, when we stop recording, I'm going to talk to you about that because one of my uncles actually makes bait, and he's
Nice.
been really successful at getting it into stores. Maybe I can link y'all up.
Well, thanks for coming out and doing
thank
this,
you
brother.
for
Yeah,
coming
absolutely.
and sharing your story. And people need to go to unwave.red. I actually looked up, because I saw it on the paper, I looked up unwave.red.com.
No,
I was
it's just
thinking it had to be
unwave.red and then
.com.
old18.com. So
Yeah, so it's just
pretty
.red.
simple stuff. but,
Unwave.red.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming down. And if you like this episode, please give it a thumbs up or a nice rating. And we will see you next week.
This is the Team Never Quit podcast. So buckle up, Buttercup.